Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, episode 536, Perspective and Balance. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, I will continue with We Already Know and Unsung Heroes. Here, I look at some concepts which we should already know, such as sticking up for the environment. Then, it's Unsung Heroes. Here, I look at how people are often underappreciated and they don't get much recognition for the hard work they do. Then it's on to perspective and balance. Here, I look at how we see ourselves and how to balance our activities, emotions, and other things. Today's show will feature background footage from Strawberry Gap Trail. Strawberry Gap Trail is in Girton, North Carolina. To get there from Asheville, take Highway 74A East. When you cross over into Henderson County, it's the first road off to the right. It's basically a little parking area. There, you'll see the trailhead at the end of the parking area. I hiked up to Ferguson's Peak, which provides a wonderful view of Fairview, with its lots of farms and relatively flat land surrounded by the mountains. So now, let's continue with We Already Know and Unsung Heroes. Well, they might not even appreciate you like they should, but that's just the way it goes. Sometimes people are just caught up in their own little world because they too are really busy. They're too busy to think about all you do for them, and they're too busy to thank you. Sometimes you could take the word distracted and substitute it for busy. Some people are just too distracted to appreciate what you do, or too distracted to thank you. They're busy, they're distracted, they're whatever. Yeah, and you're the one who doesn't get thanked. Once again, don't let it bother you. Just kind of accept that that's the way it is. Because typically it is. It's not just you, it's everyone else who does a lot of work for their people they love, people they care about, or even their job. Ask your coworkers how much they are appreciated on the job. Ask your friends and relatives how much they are appreciated for helping out the ones they love. Yeah, okay, now you get it. They're not appreciated either, are they? No one's appreciated, it seems, hardly. Well, we might be appreciated a little bit, but we just don't get near the recognition we really deserve. Oh well, that's the way it goes. As I said, don't get depressed or cynical about it. Just realize that that's just the situation, and we just gotta continue on. We'll get our little appreciation here and there, and we just gotta live with that. However, we can do something a little more just to make sure that we at least get our happiness and satisfaction in there. Okay, that's important. Now we're getting somewhere. That's right. You do so much, and no one cares. And you deserve a break. Sure you do. You deserve something. A little vacation, a little consideration, a little something. Sure. And so you just gotta carve it out. Perhaps ask for that extra day off from your boss. Or ask for that vacation time. Perhaps ask for a little consideration from the people you help every day. Perhaps ask just for a little break so you can have fun. You might have to arrange an alternative caretaker to take your place. But hopefully you could do that, because you deserve a break. You deserve some fun time. Well, with me it might be hiking or skiing or going on vacation time. Well, you figure out what you're into. I guess I like hiking. I like getting out in nature. Sure, I like the exercise. I'm assuming it helps me in many ways. Sure. So perhaps reducing fall risk and helping me with balance and other things. As I crawl over the rocks, going up towards the cliffs, going over steep rocks. I had to be very careful and often crawling, at rumbling bald. Sure. But whatever the situation, hiking and exercising is obviously good for us, and that's probably one of the things we should do whenever we get time. Whenever we can carve out that little extra time to appreciate ourselves. So as I said, you gotta ask your loved ones or your boss or whoever to give you that little extra time so you can take care of yourself. That's all. So we have to think about it, about being an unsung hero. It's just such a common scenario. I guess we all fit in this role at some point in our lives, and perhaps for a good chunk of our lives. We're just an unsung hero, and that's just the way it goes. We're just underappreciated, but we continue to work. That's the main thing. Continue to take care of our loved ones and the people we care about, and so on and so on. 4. I guess someday people might appreciate unsung heroes more. And, we'll move along and we'll all gain in knowledge and kindness, hopefully. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this section of The Casey Waters Show. Now, it is time for perspective and balance. Here, a look at how we see ourselves and how to balance our activities, our emotions, and other things. So, let's just dive into it. We need to balance our emotions. And, of course, a lot of that has to do with perspective. How we see ourselves. How we see ourselves in relation to other people. What our role is. What our role should be. Are we presenting the right image? Or are we doing things the right way? If anything is wrong, that could create negative emotions and can create stress. So we have to look at how much emphasis we put on things like getting every detail right, or looking just perfect, or whatever it might be. Our perspective determines how much we get caught up in something emotionally, how much we invest emotionally, either positive emotions or negative emotions. So, we don't want to get carried away or be too vulnerable. So, we have to look at how much emphasis we put on things and how to balance our emotions so we don't get too carried away. Sure. And so sometimes we might get too boisterous or enthusiastic about something. Other times we might be too depressed and lethargic. So we have to look at ourselves, look at our personal history. How active are we typically? And when I say that, go back to the distant past, 5, 10 years ago, and things like that. At least try to look back to a time period in your life where you see yourself doing well. Are you doing that well now? Well, why not? Do you have physical limitations? Or are there more like mental limitations, in the sense that you might be getting too depressed to enjoy the activities that you used to? Well, that does happen to me, at least every now and then. Sometimes I cast an activity in a negative light, thinking it won't be enjoyable. But once I participate, once I go there, well, then I have more fun than I thought I would. Things are more enjoyable than I expected. So this is a common scenario, is my assumption, and it probably happens to a lot of us. We hear about an event, and we're like, oh yeah, we'll go, but then we think, oh, this isn't going to be right, or it's going to be boring, or it's going to be too long, or whatever. Or I'm too busy to do it. And then we might discover that we do have time to do it, and that it's more enjoyable than we thought it would be. So we just have to look at ourselves and just try to be aware that we could slip into this pattern of less participation if we're not careful. Well, then we have to look at the other side. We could get carried away in the sense that we're putting too much time and energy into something. Perhaps we need to dedicate our time and energy to other things. Well, we have to look at that. Perhaps it's something we really enjoy doing. Well, sure, it's all fun and dandy, and it's nice to have a good time, but you gotta take care of your responsibilities, whether it's your family, your job, whatever. So we have to have time for that. So we can't get too carried away in anything by putting too much time into it, unless it's truly worth it. Or we might have to do it only for a temporary time period. But we have to look at these things and see what the negative impacts are, as far as if we spend too much time doing something we enjoy, let's say a hobby we love. Well, will that take away time that we need to spend with our family? Or will it affect how I do my job or other things? So we have to look at all that. We have to look at how we balance our emotions and how we balance our activities. Well, typically, when I do this, when I try to balance my activities or my emotions, I usually like to do it by myself. And I just think about it and use my memory of my past experiences and how I behaved in the past and try to find an optimal balance of activities and emotions so I don't get too depressed. But you do want to feel things when something's upsetting, so you have to balance it. You want to be happy when something is nice, but perhaps you don't want to be too happy that you just get carried away with it. So you have to balance it all. As I said, I usually like to do this by myself and kind of think it through. Sure. But sometimes, for various reasons, you might need a little help. You might need someone else to help you figure this all out. Well, sure. So you could talk to a friend you truly trust, or a family member who understands the situation, or whoever you think is appropriate. So you talk to them about how to balance your emotions and your activities. Tell them what you're going through and your struggles. Sure, sometimes we're just too busy. Other times we're dealing with situations that are really upsetting. And so we have to deal with that. And sometimes we need a break. We need to have fun. Well, perhaps that's where our friend could come in, or a family member. Well, we have to think about this. Or perhaps our partner could help us. Whoever, there should be someone to turn to in these times of need. So, it's good to have, as I said, someone who could relate to you and understand your situation. So when things go wrong, you could get their perspective and they can help you figure things out. However, sometimes things could get, stressful for too long of a time period. The duress of stress. Stress with a long duration, or perhaps being upset about something with a long duration, or being depressed for a very long time. We have to watch out for these situations when we might experience negative emotions for a long period of time. What do I mean by a long period of time? Okay, let's define it. We're going to say 2 weeks. If you're depressed for 2 weeks, over 2 weeks, because of a loss of a loved one, well, what could happen is if you're depressed for too long, eventually could affect your brain chemistry, and you might become depressed, and it might be hard to get out of it. So the shorter you're depressed, the easier it is to climb out of it. So once you start getting close to 2 weeks, it's been a week, it's been 10 days, and you still feel horrible because of whatever happened, well, you have to find some way to not focus on the upsetting event. Perhaps a way to have fun. Perhaps you need to see a good concert with a good friend or something like that. Or go on a nice little vacation for a few days. Find something you really enjoy doing, whatever it is, and get yourself doing that. Especially in situations of extreme depression, like losing a loved one. But there's all sorts of duress, of stress. Sometimes situations could be, we have to deal with the duress of stress because we're broke for a long period of time, or we have uncertainty about our job, or we are looking for a job and we can't find one, or there's some other threat hanging over our head, which could just ruin things, so to speak. Well, I guess you have to use the same kind of guideline. Maybe it's even shorter in these situations of stress and being upset. Instead of 2 weeks, maybe 2 days. Perhaps only a few hours. If we're really upset or really worried or freaking out over something, well, we need to stop that situation. We need to stop freaking out. We need to stop being extremely worried. Sure, well, easier said than done, obviously. Sometimes, unfortunately, the situation we're freaking out about, or the situation that worries us so much, is still there. It's not going away. And so we just have to deal with it. Well, sure we do. But we can't keep dealing with it with the intense, raw emotion that we felt when we first learned about this situation. We have to somehow tamper our emotions down, dull them down a little bit, not feel them so strongly. Sure, we need to just somehow live with the horrible situation, whatever it is, and just kind of adjust and move on the best we can. I know it might sound extremely difficult, and it probably is. But we can't just keep being extremely worried, or extremely frustrated, or extremely sad, or extremely depressed, or whatever. Once we get into these negative, extreme emotions, we gotta reduce them somehow. Perhaps by talking to a loved one, or talking to someone who truly knows about the situation, or perhaps just having a diversion of sorts, having a little break, perhaps going to a good party, or a good concert, or whatever, or having a weekend camping out. Well, we need to take our time to take care of ourselves. We need to take our time to make sure that we do have that special activity, the good party to go to, the good concert, the glorious weekend camping or traveling, whatever it is, whatever we really want to do, the ski trip, whatever. We need to make sure that we could do it, that we have time and resources available, and that we could do our favorite thing occasionally. This applies for pretty much all situations. Even if we're not depressed or worried, we should still have time to do the things we enjoy. As I said earlier, we should not withdraw from the things we like because we think they might not be as enjoyable as we thought or whatever reason. No, we need to participate because often once we participate, we'll realize it was worth the effort. So we have to think about that and try to participate as much as we can. But of course, we do have to allow for a little rest and relaxation too. Sure, even though we might not have much time for it, a little bit of resting, just a little relaxation, a 5-minute cigarette break or whatever, could go a long way to helping you have a better day. So you have to take these little breaks to talk to your friend or whatever. It might not be long, just a few minutes or 5 minutes, but between activities or whatever, it's nice to have a little break. And while we rest and relax, we could adjust our perspective. We could look at things in a new light. Sure. We just have to think about how we feel about things. Do we get too emotionally involved? Are we too upset with a situation, a certain situation? Does it really bother us? Does a similar situation bother others?
Casey Waters Show. Producer, Casey Waters. Graphic editing, Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, caseywaters2@caseywaters.com.